There's a state in America where it's illegal to be caught in a hurricane, unprepared. There's a town where the sun doesn't set for 82 days straight. And there's one US state that most Americans couldn't even point to on a map, even though millions of them live within 100 miles of it. Today we're counting down 10 US state facts so strange, so specific, so unbelievable, that if I told you these as trivia questions, you'd swear I was making them up. Stick around till the end, because fact number 7 is the reason this state doesn't even show up correctly on most weather apps. Let's start. Alaska is closer to Russia than to most of the continental US. On a clear day, you can literally see Russia from a small island in Alaska. The Diomede Islands are split between the US and Russia, and they're only 2.5 miles apart. When it freezes in winter, you could theoretically walk from American soil to Russian soil. 4 states meet at exactly one point, and that point moves. The Four Corners Monument is the only place in the US where 4 state borders meet at a single spot. But here's the twist. Surveys later found the marker is actually off by more than 1,800 feet from the true corner. Millions of tourists have taken photos standing in the wrong spot for over a century. Now, fact 8 is where things start getting weird, because this next state has a law that sounds completely fake, but it's 100% real. In one US state, it's illegal to collect rainwater. For decades, parts of Colorado banned residents from collecting the rain that fell on their own roof. Why? Because water rights were already legally owned by others downstream. Even rain hadn't fallen yet, and it was already claimed. That law has since been relaxed, but for over a century, catching rainwater in a bucket could get you fined. There's a US state you cannot drive to without leaving the country: Alaska. To reach it by road from anywhere else in the US, you have to pass through Canada. No exceptions. That means if you wanted to drive from Seattle to Anchorage, you'd need a passport, just to stay inside your own country. This next one is why pilots avoid flying near this next state during certain months of the year. And it's not because of storms. One state has more coastline than the entire East Coast combined. Alaska again. And this is the one that shocks people the most. Alaska has over 33,000 miles of coastline. That's more than every other US coastal state combined. If you unrolled Alaska's coastline in a straight line, it would circle the Earth more than once. There's a US state where 80% of the population lives on just 20% of the land. Most Americans assume the country is evenly spread out. It's not even close. The vast majority of the population is packed into the eastern third of the country, while enormous stretches of the west remain nearly empty. Entire counties out west have fewer people than a single city block back east. Now here's where it gets personal, because fact 4 involves a state where the ground itself is trying to kill the roads. One state has a hole that isn't on any map, because it's federal land no state controls. For decades, a small triangle of land near the Idaho-Montana border existed in legal limbo. It wasn't officially inside any state's jurisdiction for law enforcement purposes. That loophole even inspired a real legal theory that someone could commit a crime there and never be prosecuted, because no court technically had jurisdiction. There's a state capital that isn't even the biggest city in its own state. This happens more than you'd think. In fact, in most US states, the capital city isn't the largest one. New York's capital isn't New York City. Illinois' capital isn't Chicago. It's a pattern most people never notice until it's pointed out. We're almost at number 1. But fact 2 is about a state that quietly changed shape, and most residents have no idea it happened. Some state borders have moved due to rivers changing course. Rivers like the Mississippi and the Rio Grande naturally shift over decades. Since many state lines were originally drawn along these rivers, when the river moves, tiny pockets of land technically switch states, sometimes without anyone updating the map for years. There are literally patches of land legally in one state, but geographically surrounded by another. Let that sink in for a second. An actual piece of US territory that quietly changed which state it belongs to, and almost nobody noticed. Before we get to fact number 1, which might be the most surprising one on this entire list, if you're enjoying this, tap subscribe now. State Frame breaks down US geography like this every single week. Alright, number 1. There is a US state you technically cannot reach without going through another country first. And it's not the one you think. Everyone assumes it's Alaska. It's not just Alaska. Point Roberts, a small U.S. peninsula in Washington state, is physically cut off from the rest of the country by the Canadian border. To drive there from anywhere else in the United States, you must cross into Canada, then cross back into the U.S. twice, just to reach a piece of land that's still legally American soil. Locals go to school, get mail, and pay U.S. taxes, in a place you can only reach by leaving the country first. It sounds impossible, but it's real, and it's still there today. So let's recap what we covered. Alaska is closer to Russia than most of America. 4 state borders meet at a spot that's technically wrong. 1 state banned collecting rain. Another can only be reached by leaving the country. Alaska's coastline alone beats the entire East Coast combined. Most of America is crammed into a fraction of its land. A legal no-man's land existed for decades. Some state capitals aren't even a state's biggest city. Rivers have quietly redrawn state borders, and one tiny American town is completely cut off from its own country. America isn't just 50 states on a map. It's full of borders that don't make sense, land that shouldn't exist the way it does, and rules that sound fake but are completely real. If this blew your mind, hit subscribe, because next time, we're covering the U.S. state that almost never happened, and the one law that could have completely changed the map of America forever. See you in the next one.